I first, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming out tonight. It's such an important issue for all of us here in our Catholic schools and our Lutheran schools. I was in a conversation we were talking for the future, and he made the comment. I think it's an important comment to say tonight. Afraid to that about looking at how far we come in the school choice efforts, and that's only possible with a couple things. Nothing happens without people, without all of your support, without our legislators up in Des Moines, and also with the help of some very important people who are here tonight. And the first one I'm going to introduce is Tom Chapman. If you'd come up, say a few words.
Okay, well, we good. We got through that part. That's good. Part, okay. Really do appreciate the opportunity here tonight. My name is Tom Chapman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Catholic Conference. We do policy work for the Catholic bishops in Iowa. Well, there'll be 17th legislative session at the state capitol. Really looking forward to working on this issue this year. And we work together on parental choice and education with a variety of partners. Of course, one of those very important partners is the Iowa Association of Christian Schools. We work together in church. So work with the Iowa Alliance Foundation. Now, we've been working for a long time. As it's gotten more successful, there are many goals that are covered. So we're really excited to see about where this is going and what we can do this next legislative session. What I'm going to do here next is just review very quickly the current school choice program that we have in Iowa that many of you are probably familiar with, the school tuition organization, credit, and to come in and talking about ESA's, Education Savings Account, and then I'll turn it over for some more content, and we'll talk about legislative outlook later. And then at the end of the program, we will definitely have time for all your questions and answers. I know this can be very confusing. There's a lot of misinformation that's out there about what this program will do or not do. We want to answer your questions so you feel very comfortable about that. There we go. School Tuition Organization Tax Credit. This program has been around since 2006, and right now, currently the state allocates up to $20 million for donors who contribute to scholarship funds to attend non-public schools. And those scholarships are available to families who make no more than 400% of the federal poverty level. So it's targeted towards lower income people. In fact, actually, more than 1/3 of the students in the non-public schools get this scholarship. So you can see how important a program that is, every year. And since the program was created, more than $200 million has gone to scholarships for children. And I want you to think about that. Where would those families be, and where would our schools be without that program? $200 million. So what are education savings accounts? Well, they're currently available in 8 states around the country. ESAs enable a parent who's not enrolling their child in the public school to get a deposit of funds from the state into a special savings account. A debit card would be issued for the parent with certain approved vendors. And for most of us, that would probably be the non-public school that's accredited. So you'd have a debit card with approved uses. But they could also be used for other things like fees for private instruction, some kind of tutoring or training if you're in a non-public school situation, or also possibly even for homeschoolers. In our proposal, the grant of money into the savings account would equal the average amount of the state per pupil spending for each student. So right now, that says 7,000 is one. Actually, it's about $7,100 that the state allows for each public school student right now, $7,100. In the governor's proposal earlier this year, the governor was saying the ESA would be $5,400. There's still a little bit of a gap there, but we'd like to see it be the full per pupil, right? So who would get an ESA if this passes? Would it be limited to just public school parents moving their students over into the non-public school? Would it be for all parents looking at a certain amount of income? And the honest answer is we don't know yet. In fact, that may very well depend on what you do. Legislators are going to be hearing from a lot of people. And we're certainly, as a coalition, we're working on a universal program that would be available to each and every parent who wanted to use it. All right? That's what we're working for. And actually, that's the program that they just passed in Arizona very recently. It's available to any parent who wants to use it. And make sure you're thinking of your questions for later. Okay, two big questions that come up at every meeting, and so I'm going to address a couple of them early on, and you can still ask them again if you want to later. But the first question I always get at a meeting like this is, what will this mean for the mission of the school? There are always strings attached to money from the state. And that's true. There's going to have to be some accountability for any money that goes to a parent. That's in one sense why they have the debit card with approved uses. There's going to have to be some accountability there. But our schools will not accept the money if it compromises the mission of the school. This is something we've talked about for over a decade now, and we're super clear about that. We're just not going to take the money if it compromises the mission. The good news is that every version of the education savings accounts bills that we've seen over the years have been absolutely clear on this point. The private school does not have to accept any particular student or change its enrollment policy. The private school explicitly does not become an agent of the state. So that's something we'll be watching for in all the versions of these bills, but to date, I don't know how it could be any more clear than that. The second question is, and this is a very important concern, what will ESAs do, to the public schools or their students? Now, we know that public schools are always going to be the backbone of our education in the state of Iowa. That's going to be a fact. But you have to look at what's already going on in some of these 8 states that have ESAs and other states that have scholarship programs for non-public school students. In none of these states have the public schools been defunded, receive lower funding, or have drastic decreases in enrollment. That has just not happened in other states. States with school choice programs have all increased their per pupil instructional funding since the school choice programs have begun. That has happened in every place. The only state money that will be lost to a public school is if a public school student goes to the non-public school. That public school will no longer receive the state per pupil. Okay, they won't get that because that student's no longer there. However, they will still receive the property tax levy at the local level. There's a general education property tax levy. That will not change. They will still receive that in exactly the same way, and ESA will not touch that in any way. And from other states' experience, looking at enrollment, we estimate that no more than 1 to 2% of public school students will use an ESA to go to a non-public school. And I think for most people that intuitively makes sense. A lot of parents, they know what school they want their child to go to, and they will work very hard to have that happen. It's really for a small percentage of people that just can't make it happen. The situation I think of is a single mom with 3 young children, You know, if she's not making a lot of money, there's no way she can make that choice to go to a non-public school. But in the environment of an education savings account, that might be possible. So we're just looking to have more opportunities for more kids, okay? Then finally, before I wrap up this point, I didn't tell you there was going to be some math, but there's going to be just a little math here tonight. The public schools get about $6 billion a year for K-12 education. $6 billion. And that counts the state aid, it counts the local property taxes, and it counts the federal title funding. Okay, big picture, it's about $6 billion a year. If we received ESAs, education savings accounts, for every single parent in the non-public schools and some homeschool parents at a reduced rate and all the public school parents that might qualify, if that happens, we estimate it would cost about 5% more in education funding. If we did everything that we ever wanted, it would cost about 5% more, which is a lot of money from where I come from, but I think that your kids are worth it. And so that's what we're going to go for. Now, I'll be back in just a little bit to talk some more about the legislative outlook and some of those pieces, but at this point we're going to have some introductions of some families to talk about their needs.
Thanks, Tom. I'm back, and I just want to introduce a Trinity family, a Trinity mom, who I think has a great passion for Christian education. She's the newest member of my board and has a great story to tell for those of you who are Catholic in the room. I learned this when I was talking to her, twisting her arm a little bit, that she went to Catholic schools and now she's come to the other side. So whatever that means. So Brianna Ryder, please welcome her.
Thank you. Oh, I'm nervous. Growing up, I grew up in a Catholic family, deep-ridden. I went to John F. Kennedy School here in Davenport, Iowa. My grandparents were very involved with church down at St. Anthony's. I was always instilled the faith. I remember growing up that if you were at a friend's house on Sunday morning, you were getting picked up at 7 a.m. to go to church. But growing up, I really enjoyed going to, a faith-based education school. And now that I have my own children, I'm also a foster parent. I have kids that are in public school, and I have kids that are here. I have one child here at Trinity. She's 9, she'll be 9, and she is in 3rd grade. We made the switch last year. We were at public school. When we came here to tour, we really were in awe of the small class sizes and everything else that Trinity had to offer, not just education, but faith-based and community involvement as well. And when we were thinking about it, we had been probably thinking about this for 2 years prior to even coming to a tour. And we were like, we can't do it, we can't afford it. It was way off our radar. We just had bought a house. She was going to a school in our neighborhood, and we really liked it, enjoyed it. And then some things changed, and we decided to come to her at Trinity. And when we got here, Olivia instantly, she fell in love with the school, and just her excitement and passion, and she loves to learn about Jesus and everything. So we made the switch, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened to our family. I've become more involved as a parent here. I've gotten to know so many friends, other families here, and I would never go back on my decision. I have foster kids in my home. They go to public school. If I ever adopted them, I would love for them to have to come to Trinity. Could I afford 3 kids? I don't know. But with this, I could see myself putting all my kids through this. Me and my husband have done what we've had to do to pay for Trinity, and it's been absolutely the best thing we've ever done for our family. And just the teachers and the staff and the pastors, they make coming to school fun for my daughter. I love that they can interact with the kids, have family ministry moments. The kids love that. And it's been nothing but wonders for my daughter. Now when she makes decisions or has a bad day at gymnastics, she prays about it, you know, and that right there just shows that she is learning everything she possibly can through Jesus and through our teachers here at Trinity. So this is based on, you know, the faith education. It's been great for our family.
So I think, I don't know about Bill, but as I was thinking about people to call, you always worry about getting that person on the phone that's like, no way ever, I can't do that. So I was actually in a conversation with our principal, and I said, you know, who do you think would be good to do this? And she said, did you ever think about asking Jim Johnson? And I said, I don't know him, but I can call him. And I felt really reassured when I think his exact words on the phone were, you've got the right guy. So that was reassuring to me. And so he's going to do a much better job up here than I ever would. So, Jim, come on up.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'll make it short, I promise. So, I'm Jim Johnson. Of 4 daughters, all separated by 1 year academically in school. They've been traversing the halls of St. Paul's and Assumption for the last 8 years. We're new to the Quad Cities, but whenever my wife and I were having the conversation about what to do for education, we had the same questions that you all did with your children. Quality, safety, and ultimately cost. And it was important to us, as it is you, for them to have a Catholic foundation. It was important, especially my old school ways. I was thinking for the girls especially. I wanted them to have that foundation, the foundation of having a Catholic background. And it's turned out to be fantastic for us. So as we went through the decision-making process, and we got to that big C, that cost, and we started doing the research, and we met with the fine folks at St. Paul's and Julie Delaney, who's a fantastic administrator. We realized what a fantastic community we were in, and that the barriers of cost were not going to be that much of a barrier through scholarships and tuition assistance and things like that. So completely changed the outlook of our girls' education. It really has. And not only has it changed, not only was it made easy by scholarships and things like that, but also for the portion that we have to pay, we've been able to make payment arrangements and do the things that we've had to do with our life because our budget is, quite frankly, embarrassingly tight. So we do, like you, what you have to do for your children when it comes to education. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to have the education possibly that we did. So it was important for us to, and it's important for me, especially when Andy called, for me to be able to tell my story because we're kind of quiet. We're not really people who are out there talking about it as much as we should. And it was exciting for me that I could come up here and tell our story because our girls are, again, if I don't use an adjective like fantastic, I shouldn't be here. So they're fantastic. So right now we have a 7th grader, we have a freshman, we have a junior, and then we have a girl who my oldest is actually in college, and she's at Luther. So she's continuing that education, that type of Christian type of education, which was important for us. So when we got to the cost piece, and we wanted to make sure that that opportunity was there. I can't tell you again how critical it was for us to realize and to discover that we didn't have to say we can only go public school because of things that were outside of our daughter's control. And that made us feel a little proud, and maybe they can change their stars, and who knows what's going to happen with them. But I can tell you this for sure. The impact that it's had on each one of their lives, they have had academic influences in these schools that I could have never imagined. They've achieved athletic success that I could only dream of. Go Knights. They've created a community amongst themselves that they'll have lifelong friends forever. And that's what's important. And we've realized, and I think we've all realized, that regardless of where your life takes you, you're only from one place. You're only from one place, no matter where you live, no matter where you work. And where you go to school and where you graduate from and where your community is at has an imprinting, and it's part of your DNA, and it's just who you are. And we're so happy that our kids are from here, from this Catholic community, from this educational community, because we know it's going to be awesome for them, and they're gonna have hopefully fantastic lives going forward. So, to me, having that choice gave them that opportunity, and opportunity gives you a freedom. Freedom's a pretty good thing. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you so much, Brianna. I know it takes a lot to get up here and talk in front of people that you do not know. Thank you so much. My name's Trish Wilger. I'm the Executive Director of Iowa Alliance for Choice in Education. But right now I'm going to pretend I'm Arlene McClintock from Auxerre. Arlene is unfortunately sick and unable to join us tonight, but I wanted to talk to you for a couple moments. We've started a new organization, Hispanics Aligned for Choice in Education Reform. In Spanish, hacer means to do. So hacer is doing a lot of great things. Arlene is the daughter of Mexican immigrants, first generation American. She's bilingual, and she's leading this organization to represent Hispanic parents across the state of Iowa. So if you know of families and parents in the Latino community looking for options in education, hoping to get involved in this issue around the state and at the Capitol, please visit their website. You can also contact me at any time, and we'll put you in contact there. But it's a new, we've been at this less than a year, but we're pretty excited about it. So now I will go back to me. I'm suddenly a lot older than Arlene. But thank you for joining us. I wanted to talk tonight about a few of the issues in school choice. There are a lot of myths and a lot of misinformation. There are a lot of facts that correspond to those myths and misinformation we're going to go over. And of course, a lot of opinions. So we will take a look at that as well here for a few minutes. Some of these slides you might have noticed when you were, before the meeting started, we had some of these on a rotation of slides here. But I just wanted to pick out a few of them. Myth number one, private school choice programs drain money from public schools. And Tom did a great job of explaining a lot of this, so I won't go into huge detail on this one. But the basic thing to keep in mind is that programs like STO, the state is spending much less on these students with that, or with the voucher in other states, or with an ESA, than they would otherwise be spending were that child in the public school system. The STO program saves a tremendous amount. In fact, a new study will be coming out before long by the Department of Revenue that calculates the savings. And now it's up to just shy of $20 million a year that the STO program saves. And that's a conservative figure based on estimates of how many kids would have to go back to the public school system were it not for the STO program. So it's an important program. It does not drain money from the public school system, nor will ESAs. Myth number two, school choice hurts traditional public schools. A number of studies show that school choice programs improve academic performance and achievement in the schools and with the students that have the opportunity for school choice. It also shows that in the neighboring public schools, achievement and accomplishment also rises. So the old statement that a rising tide lifts all boats really applies in the school choice world. And here's another one. Private school choice programs violate the separation between church and state. The court system has ruled over and over again that the properly designed school choice program like the STO or an ESA does not violate the U.S. Constitution. And a large part of that consideration and the basis for that is that the funding is going to a parent to make a choice on behalf of their child. And that's a very important part. It's going to a parent and allowing them some options. And I'm going to take you back to high school civics here, high school government. What does the U.S. Constitution actually say? I think a lot of people, and through no fault of their own, think it actually says you must keep church and state separate. It does not say that. This is actually what it says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Granted, there's a lot of interpretation that comes from that, and we'll leave that to the courts to decide, but I just wanted to touch base with you there to see what the language actually is. But school choice programs are constitutional. Myth number 4, private schools discriminate, and we hear this one a lot, especially at the Capitol. Private schools, our non-public Catholic, Lutheran, all the schools in Iowa have to follow federal law. They can't discriminate based on race, color, or national origin. They have to follow, in addition to that, safety codes and a lot of regulations. You know, sometimes it's characterized that they're not having to be accountable at all, but that's just not true. Finally, private school choice programs increase racial segregation in schools. And the studies that have been done on this actually show quite the contrary, that the result is not racial segregation at all. Some of you might have had the situation, which I know a lot of parents have, that sometimes when they choose a private school, the population there is more diverse. You have students coming from all over the area, you have kids from all different socioeconomic backgrounds as well as ethnic backgrounds. And it might actually be more diverse sometimes than the neighborhood school if the neighborhood is not very diverse. So it can actually be quite the opposite. All right, let's talk about what Iowans think about education issues. We've seen some myths, we've seen some of the facts that counteract that. Now let's take a look at some opinions. Morning Consult is a public opinion and polling organization that does polling every month in all the states across the country on education issues. And these results that we're about to take a peek at are from early November, so just a couple weeks ago in Iowa. So this slide shows you percentage of total support among all adults and then broken down to school parents. So we don't have school vouchers here, nor are we looking for those, so we'll focus on ESAs. Charter schools are a type of public school that are a little different. We just had charter laws expanded in 2021 in Iowa, so those will probably be growing in Iowa. But when you look at education savings accounts, those are pretty good numbers, 67% for all adults. And then when you look to school parents, people who are actually faced with finding choices for their kids, the number jumps even more. And then the question was given to the people responding, if given the option, what type of school would you select in order to obtain the best education for your child? 39% would choose a non-public school, 40% public school, 10% homeschool, and 6% charter school. So as we see here, 40% would still choose public school. I think this illustrates the fact we hear often that people are worried there'll be a mass exodus from public schools if school choice, if ESAs come in. I think this illustrates that point, that a lot of people in Iowa are happy with their public schools, are happy with the services that their child is getting there, and that's just great. But this shows you that, as well as the fact 39% would choose private school, but in actuality, I believe we're still around 8% of school-age children that are currently in private schools in Iowa, so there is a disparity there. All right, residents of Iowa think education is headed, and this is the percentage of direction that things are going right. Do you feel things in K-12 education are generally going the right direction? So I think it's interesting to show that the wider the area, the smaller the confidence gets. So a lot of people are confident, especially school parents are more confident in their local district than all adults. And then when you get to the state level, it gets smaller, you get to the national level again, and it reduces from there. And finally, they posed a question to see if people believe that public school funding is too low. First, people were given no description. Do you believe public school funding in Iowa is too low? All adults 54%, school parents 55%, very close. Then they were provided the funding amount, and this includes state, local, and federal sources on average. On average, Iowa pays $11,986 per student. Do you believe it's too low? When they're informed, the number drops to 38 or 34%. So again, that facts are important and the information is important before we can form those opinions. So I think those polling results are interesting to see just what people are hearing and what they know from all the facts and myths that are swirling around out there. All right, well, I wanted to bring Tom up again. We know that all of these issues on school choice lie with the governor and the legislature starting in January. So Tom's going to talk a bit about that, what to expect.
Thanks, Trish. Just a couple things, and then Lydia will talk a little bit more of a call to action. The good news on this particular issue is that Governor Reynolds has made parental choice in education her top priority. Now, people like me have been working on this for well over a decade. I mean, long time. Catholic Church actually has been working on this issue for 150 years, literally, 150 years in the state. I've been working on it for 17 years. Now this is the top priority of the governor. And we could not be more excited about that piece. We just had an election, okay, and several champions of school choice were elected to the legislature. We were pleased to see that about this issue. The governor herself got involved in some Republican primaries, and she felt this was so important that she wanted to defeat some Republicans who did not support this, and she was successful. And so we've got several champions who are new to the legislature who want to make sure that this happens. Although it's fair to say that not everyone supports it. Now, we will be seeing a proposal from the governor, I would say within the next month or so. I would think we'll hear more about that. Certainly, as I said before, we are working very hard and encouraging her to include current non-public school parents in the program. But we don't know what's going to come up with that yet. Even if it doesn't, it still would be helpful ultimately, because any money that parents have to help pay for tuition supports the whole school. We know that. But it would be good to get current parents involved. The thing I want to get across is that, just to be clear, this is not a done deal in any way, all right? We still have a lot of work to do as a coalition. There are some Republicans who are not supportive of this yet, and most Democrats, the great majority of Democrats, are not supportive. And so we've got some work to do on this issue. One reason that we're here tonight is to ask for your help. And I know that many of you are busy being parents and grandparents and school leaders, in your schools. And I am very grateful for what you do in that area, very grateful. What I'm about to say may feel a little uncomfortable, okay? But we have got to humble ourselves and ask for help. We cannot let other people lead the way on this. Each and every one of you really should be considering talking to your legislator now about this issue and making sure they know. Because otherwise, I'm concerned that our schools will survive, but they'll survive as schools of the rich and the elite. And that is certainly not what we want for our schools. Certainly for Catholic schools, that's not our vision for education. It's not a vision for a Christian school for education. We want to serve as many people as possible. And we need to get this done. So we're going to have to humble ourselves and ask for help. Our public school friends are not shy about telling legislators why you shouldn't get any help. All right? This is about opportunities for kids. And no longer should we stand by and let those opportunities pass away. So if you haven't already, I really encourage you to start building that relationship with your legislator. We've got some great legislators who are going to be in place. They want to hear from you, and I'm going to encourage you to do that. And I know Trish and Lydia will have a little bit more to say about that, and then we'll take your questions.
Thank you, Tom. I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce a brand new, newly elected legislator. Luana Stoltenberg is here from House District 81. Luana?
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited about school choice. I really wish this room was packed. As you were talking about myths, the big myths we heard all through the campaign season was public money should be used for public schools. And it may be public money, but it is your money. It is your taxpayer money. And as parents, you should get to choose where your child is educated because you know your child and you know what best fits your child. And especially with what is taking place in the public schools with the curriculum and all the things that are taking place today, you as a parent should have a choice of where your child goes. So when I go up to Des Moines, this is going to be one of my top issues. I'm going to fight for school choice and to get that maximum. I believe the maximum amount should be able to be taken out to go for your child. So hopefully the rest will go with me. Pray for that.
Thank you so much for being here and for your enthusiasm. And Lydia?
I'll get the clicker. Well, I'm bringing up the rear. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out. Let's see if I can do this right. My name is Lydia Quick, and I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Association of Christian Schools. And I just really appreciate you coming out, taking time out of your schedule to come learn, to come educate yourself on this issue. I have a extensive history with Christian education. I'm a product of Christian education. I went to the same Christian school on the East Coast in a little town called Chesapeake, Virginia, my whole life, from kindergarten all the way through grade 12. And without a doubt, I know I'm standing where I am today because of where I was and the sacrifice that my parents made to have me in a school that they chose that was best for their family. And I just appreciate my experience so much, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about educational choice and just giving people the opportunity to choose that for their own family. But one of the things that I get to do is to sort of give you all a call to action. It'll work for me. So Tom touched a lot on that, and one thing I will say is that I think what's so unique in Iowa, coming from the East Coast, and just growing up, and I went to school at a Christian college in Florida, is the partnership that we all have as a coalition. I know that Tom and Trish, and we employ a lobbyist, Eric Goranson. Some of you may know him. He works so closely with Tom at the Capitol, and they're boots on the ground for all of us, and they just maintain a relationship of where they're consistent in their messaging and that we are asking for the same thing for our families. And that's so important, and that is not usual. That is not how it is across the nation, I can tell you. So we're really fortunate in Iowa to have so many great partnerships. And I grew up Baptist, and I'm standing here in a room with Lutheran families and Catholic families. I mean, that's amazing. So I love it. Some of the things that you could do, we talked about engaging your legislators. Well, how can you do that? During session, they come home on Fridays. Legislators come home on Fridays, and many of them will have Saturday morning coffees or get-togethers where they will engage with their constituents. And so I would encourage you to join in on some of those. They usually announce them ahead of time, and they're smaller gatherings, but it's a good time to really introduce yourself, get to know legislators, and they usually do a Q&A time. And it's just, that's one way that you can do it. Another way that you can do it is to sign up with your organization to receive information. So sometimes we get lost in acronym city, but these are our acronyms: IACS, ICC, and ACE. So you will see if you attend a Catholic school, you'll get alerts from Tom at the Iowa Catholic Conference, and if you attend Trinity, you'll get alerts from the Iowa Association of Christian Schools. And so again, we are asking for the same thing. And then sometimes Trish, she's the broader, she's kind of like our mom. She keeps us all together. You know, we eat dinner at the table tonight, folks. We've got to talk about some things. So she brings us to the table. And so sometimes you'll see alerts from Trish, but please read them. Please engage. It's so important. We are only as strong as our grassroots effort. And I don't mean to sound cliche with that, but it is so true. We need your help. While we are at the Capitol doing our work up there, we need help at the grassroots level. Ask your principal how you can help get legislators into your building. You know, just engage, be involved. And again, we are only as strong as our grassroots. And I think, you know, when I get talking, and we've thrown a lot of information out at you tonight, and I know it's overwhelming, and there's a lot of data and a lot of percentages, and I was never great at math, right? So sometimes it just kind of messes with me. But what I like to just kind of bring it down to is, at the end of the day, it's more of a bipartisan issue than I think you would realize when you're out talking to your neighbors. Because when you look at somebody and you tell them, hey, you could have the opportunity to direct your tax dollars to benefit your child or your children, I mean, how can you argue with that, right? So at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about making a difference in children's lives. It's about providing opportunities for small town people like myself who wouldn't have otherwise be where I'm at today. I know that without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. And one thing I forgot to mention is that I worked as advancement director at a Christian school in the Des Moines area, and our 3 kids attend Christian school, and I'm getting ready to launch one after this year. And boy, I tell you, sometimes when it comes time to write those tuition checks, I'm not going to lie, even working at a school for so long, my husband and I would be like, oh, I don't know, what is this, you know, is this going to be worth it? Well, yes, absolutely. I wouldn't change a thing for any of our 3 children, and I know those of you that have children in your schools would not change a thing either. And how great would it be to be able to have that for all families in the state of Iowa. So I think we're going to bring our coalition and friends up. Oh, that's right. Okay, we're going to share the. Oh, so we're going to open it up for Q&A, which means I'm going to ask for questions, and they're going to. So Bill will be. If you have a question, don't be shy. We will answer them for you. We're here to help. We're here to educate. We're here. We want to get this done this year, y'all. If I can say y'all, because I'm from Southern Virginia, so we want to get this done. So don't be shy. Who's first?
So in the negotiations with the education savings accounts, would we be willing to get rid of STO in order to get that done? Has that been talked about, or is it a combination issue of how they're going to move forward with strategy?
No, that's a good question about would we be willing to give up the STO in exchange for this? I don't think that's going to be necessary in the fact that the STO actually saves the state money, you know, like $20 million a year at least. I think that's an underestimate. I don't think they're going to want to get rid of it. And what we're hoping is that the education savings account comes in, and those two programs working together, the ESA would really help out a lot of people, but then we still have those scholarships to help with the lowest income people, so or even the people that move up into the middle class, you know, 400% or less. So they'll work in concert. I mean, it's a little different in the Catholic schools because in some of the elementaries, you know, the tuition is less than $5,400. So, you know, now that may have to change a little bit in the future. But for a lot of schools, that $5,400 is not going to get you where you need to go. And so we're still going to need the STO. So that hasn't come up, but I don't think it will either.
Anyone else? Question?
I just say, as far as reaching out to your legislators, I'm not sure everybody knows how to do that. Mine have found me, and I reach out to them in return. But I think maybe if people go onto their legislator's website and ask a question, that you'll probably be on their list forever. And otherwise, it'd be great if we had a clearinghouse for who was having town meetings when they're back in town, if there was a way that those could be communicated out to people so we could kind of stimulate that response.
Well, that was a great question, both of those, about the coffees. There used to be kind of a single clearinghouse to find those, and they haven't been doing them as much, so it's hard to find out, but I think that's something that we can work on to try to identify that every week. And on each of our websites, if you go to, we use a vendor called Voter Voice, and if you go there and put in your address with your zip code, it will tell you who your legislators are. So you don't even need to know who they are. You put in your address, well, it'll say zip code and then your address. It will tell you exactly who they are, and you can proactively email them right on the spot.
So when I think about, I guess, this whole issue, you know, we can reach out to our legislators, and that's really good. And I've been doing that. So in doing that the last, I'd say, close to a year or more, I get a lot of feedback of, well, here's what the governor's proposing. I do or don't support it. Here's why. I feel like there's not a really good singular message where, like, maybe all of us, or at least you guys, the leadership, could get together with all of our local House and Senate reps at one spot. And maybe you already do that. I mean, has anybody tried to organize something, even if it's only like a round table of 12 of you, and say, here's exactly what we want to ask for, type of thing?
Yeah, and that's a great question. It's a tough situation to try to deal with, but our lobbying team and all those involved do certainly try to communicate to legislators, and we, as Lydia said, coordinate the message that goes to them. If you have legislators who are resistant to it, you know, they probably aren't sharing the information that we're giving to them. On the education front with legislators, we do give them written materials as well as try to do trainings, especially with Zoom. Has been such a great way to get in touch with legislators, but we've also talked about sometimes national partners do that. Some of the national school choice organizations come in and do some training. So somewhat it depends on how receptive people are to the message to want to delve into it and understand it, especially if they're opposed to it on the front end of it.
Anybody else?
So I'm a numbers person, so I'm making notes for those of you who may not be good at math. So the comment was made, it's going to cost 5% more of $6 billion, which is $300 million, which is a lot of money. So are there proposals on where that money is going to come from? Is it going to be property taxes? Because Iowa already has really high property taxes compared to a lot of states. So what's the conversation of where this is going to come from?
Well, it's not going to be from property taxes, at least from our proposal. You know, from what we would like to do is legislators will have to grapple with those issues. Right now, all the current proposals for education savings accounts will be from the state's general fund, which is the money that they get from taxes. You know, sales taxes, income taxes. It's like the checkbook for the state. That's how we envision that being paid. And so there's lots of different ways to do that. Remember, and it's kind of complex in the sense that every student who leaves a public school and gets an ESA saves money for the state. So you have to put that against the new money that they might be paying. And where the legislature will go with that, we don't know yet. We're certainly encouraging them to start with a big program as much as possible, but there's always compromises. And I would expect it to be narrowed down, probably, but you never know. I mean, Arizona just passed a universal program that's available to every parent, and they're going to find a way to do it. And so you find a way to do the things that are important, you know, and once again, we think the kids are important to have this opportunity.
Anyone else have a question? I would just make one quick comment. It's interesting when you hear that public dollars debate. My rebuttal to that is, if you were to walk down the hall of this school, you would find a preschool program. It is a state-funded preschool program. Skip a few years, graduate someone from high school, and public dollars help fund college education. The only educational aspect in our state that is not funded by public dollars is K-12.
You're absolutely right. Oh, that spawned a question.
No, we were just having a little bit of a side discussion. For the room, I had a question, I think I understand, but the universal versus the ESA, can you just kind of recap the differences between that? And then the follow-up question is, I heard there's work that has to be done, and I know Governor Reynolds is behind it, and I know many of our elected officials now are behind this, but how do you see the outlook for where we're going to land now? I mean, what really is going to be the tangible things we should see or support going forward to make this reality? Because I realize it's not a done deal, as your slide said. So what do we have to do to help and or watch for to see this is progressing and we really get this delivered, if you will?
Well, I can take the first part of that, and then you can take the complicated part. How about that? When we're speaking about a universal ESA, that means that everyone would be eligible. So it's not means tested or income based. In some states, there's you need to be a special needs student to qualify, or a foster child, various types of programs. That when we're speaking about universal, it would mean that everyone is eligible, whether they were wealthy or not, or you know, where they lived, no matter what district. So all encompassing.
In terms of how do I think it's going to go, I mean, I think the governor has been clear in that she says this, she wants this to be the first bill she signs. So if that's the case, I think it's likely we're going to see a bill introduced the first day of the session, January 9th or January 10th. The governor's going to talk about it in her State of the State address, January 10th, and it's going to be off and running, you know. And so it will be very early, I would say, in the session, mid-January, no later than late January, is that we'll be asking people to contact their legislators. Now, it's always kind of a question, when's the right time to do that? There's never a bad time to do it. You know, it could be early, it could be later. We don't usually have a big action alert right when a bill's introduced, but we may feel differently this year. In fact, tomorrow we're going to have a strategy meeting. Is there something we should be doing before January even? But the answer is, I think this will, for right or wrong, failure, not failure, whatever, it's going to be off and running very early in January.
If we have a child or children enrolled in one of the schools that you mentioned, we will receive alerts through one of these organizations on the current slide.
The easiest way to get an alert is make sure you sign up today. And if you signed up today, you will be put on Trish's list, right? So you will get those alerts if you sign up tonight. We're hoping every school sends out those alerts. We don't know that that always happens, but that's the intention.
Okay, just a quick suggestion. There's a pretty significant homeschooling community here in Davenport from what I can tell. And I think it might really be worthwhile reaching out to them because I think they'd be very excited to help promote this.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and we do work with Homeschool Iowa, the that represents the homeschool community at the Capitol. So we work, and that's another thing when and their lobbyists that Lydia was talking about. It's kind of unusual that we have everyone across the spectrum. We have, I'm not sure if anyone from Rivermont is here, but we have the independent and secular schools here that are involved in this as well as the homeschool community, and we work closely with them. So that's a great suggestion, though.
Yeah, wait, no, they won't hear you. They won't hear me. Okay. So, in terms of the homeschool community, at the Catholic schools, we have a distribution list that we send out those action alerts. So I'll get the action alert, and then we have our social media guy put together an email, and we blast them out. If there's a contact person that you have that has you don't have to give us all those emails. I know people are sometimes nervous about that, but say you're the contact person, and I get it to you, and you're on our list, then you can forward that out to everyone. Kind of puts us all as a group, and we could do it for the Lutheran schools too, and anybody else who wants to be involved. Since we're already putting just a stock email out, we'd be happy to take care of that. So if it's you, just email me at assumptioni.org.
Any other questions? One in the back. This microphone is starting to cut out, so we'll do the best we can.
Okay. Hi, guys. So I guess my question is maybe a little more selfish or personal, but I think, you said no more than 1% to 2% will use the ESA and go to a non-public school, but I think that in this case it might be low. I know a lot of people in the Davenport-Bettendorf communities that are really not happy with their public school education, and I think that that's a really low estimate. So I am curious, one, for Trinity and or maybe Assumption, which is where we would probably send Elliot when he gets a little bit older. We got a few years, but what does that look like tuition wise, as far as like, are we going to see a substantial increase in tuition either here or there, and then also if we have like a huge influx in people that want to attend public schools, how will you, how will that be established? Either through enrollment and other things. Part of the reason that we come here is because we feel safe and secure, and we love the education. So increasing those class sizes and things like that. So I guess that would be my question. How do we address those issues?
I guess maybe the tuition question, I think that was kind of geared more toward Andy and Bill.
So that you bring up a great point. I mean, that's something that we're all grappling with. Like when this gets through, what happens with tuition? I can tell you that the administrators I've spoken to throughout the state, there's not a plan all of a sudden and then have it, be an exorbitant amount. Personally, we try to keep it at about a 3% increase per year to tuition. I don't see that, all of a sudden just putting it through the roof. We have families that, depending on how the program is structured, might, for the middle class families and things like that. So we projection of, 3 to
So you asked specifically about Trinity because you're a Trinity parent, and unfortunately I can't give you a definitive answer. As I think Tom mentioned, elementary schools, if you look at that $7,000-ish, Trinity doesn't charge that much to anybody. So it's one of those things. If that money is available, are we going to leave it sitting on a debit card? Especially if it's universal. So that's the other big question. If it's universal, well, that changes things, right? It changes things dramatically. I mean, we have a school ministry team. Our board meets tomorrow night, and I've been spending a lot of time on this topic, trying to figure out what does this look like going forward. The other thing that I would say to that, I would guess this is true in most Christian schools. I can tell you it's true in this one. Our cost to educate is artificially low. It's artificially low because we can't afford to pay teachers a great amount. So we're always struggling with that balance. How much can we raise tuition before it becomes too much? But we really want to pay our teachers. We want to take care of our staff in better ways. Well, I believe something like this provides the best of both worlds. It's a win-win. We'll be able to take care of our staff in better ways. We'll be able to have some programs and some things that we don't have now, perhaps, because there's additional funding. But again, that's really going to depend on what kind of shape this takes as it comes out of the legislature. I hope that helps a little bit. It's a struggle that I think educators and administrators around the state are probably all struggling with right now.
I'll just address a little bit. You asked about school culture, basically, is what you're asking about too. And that is going to be a challenge in terms of how assuming we might grow, hopefully, and do that in a planful way. All I can tell you is schools, both Christian and Catholic schools in other states, are going through that and living through that. I'm going to say Indiana's a good comp. They've got about 85% of their students now qualify for a scholarship if they wanted to have one. So there has to be that conversation about how you're going to grow, what is the school class size, how do people become integrated into your, for us, our Christian communities. And so that's something that we had a meeting in September about some of that, and it'll be an ongoing discussion.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tom, because I'm sorry I didn't answer that part of your question. That's another very important aspect. I mean, we have our enrollment policies, and we try to find people that are a good match to our mission. I don't think that's going to change. And the good news is the legislation as it is written isn't going to force us into something that we're not comfortable with.
Yeah. And frankly, a lot of our schools have empty seats that we'd like to have some kids in there. So, yeah.
You mentioned that there's potential it would be for only new people coming into private schools, not existing private school students. Would there what are the rules that could come around with that? Would we see a negative of people pulling their kids from private schools to become, if it gets you $7,000, do you see the reverse cycle of that?
Yeah, and that's I'll try not to blow the speakers out here. A valid question that we've talked about a lot. Our feeling is that parents will not take their children out in any large quantity or large numbers anyway to go to public school so that they then qualify for the program. And that's just in the governor's last proposal that was public school transfer students. It may not be that way. That's just one of the options that has been out there in past proposals and past versions. We don't know what to expect or what we're going to get this time, but it's a valid concern. Do you have anything?
I can just speak to the fact that what we tell our schools is that you should never have to deviate from any of your admissions policies, your mission, back to that point, but also to your question about people unenrolling. And then, I mean, I think maybe that could happen, but I know in the Des Moines metro area, and it's not the case all over the state, but if an ESA bill does pass in some way, shape, or form, I would imagine seats would fill up. And then I know at my own kid's school, if we were to not enroll right when they say enroll this coming spring, there's a possibility, even though they've been there their whole life, that they might not get that spot. So that's kind of one angle, but again, we don't know how it's going to play out. But I just want to reassure everyone that your school does not have to deviate or make compromises or sacrifice any of your beliefs or mission if this passes.
Any other questions? Last chance. All right.
Well, thank you so much for being such an attentive, wonderful audience tonight. We appreciate the discourse and conversation about all of this. Certainly, if you have questions after tonight, you can find any of us. You could find us through Bill and Andy as well. And I did want to mention, I know we have people here from Americans for Prosperity Iowa, and so we appreciate you being a partner organization as well and being here tonight. And also, more importantly, you want to make sure that you take cookies and water. Feel free you don't have to hurry on out. If you want to talk with any of us privately, we'll be here for a bit. Have some cookies and water. Thank you for being here.